$1,000 that if somebody listens to this, they implement what we just said. If you do that for a month and you show me that you haven't improved, I'll give you $1,000. And you know what? I'm only going to give $1,000 out, but I'd rather give it to somebody that succeeds than somebody that fails. So if somebody comes in and does all those things and improves and can show me, I'll give you $1,000. I actually got some pretty dope bets coming up on the Super Bowl here. I got to pull these up.
Is one of them the refs are going to rig the game so the Chiefs win?
I don't think I saw that one, but that would be a good one to take. Dude, I've seen so many people on X getting pissed about that and like having
just annoying. It's going to be a low viewership Super Bowl because it's
Wait, is there
literally the
anything
same
to
thing.
it?
I mean, there's a lot of plays
Yes.
that they're like, well, and also if you see the penalties for the Chiefs versus the penalties versus the opposing teams in like the playoffs, it's very different. It's a conspiracy theory that Tyler must believe.
Well, no, just dude, I wish there was like a blockchain for betting so you could see what the refs were betting on and then you could just copy those bets.
That makes me think Polymarket. Polymarket is, I wonder what they're saying about it.
I still haven't gotten it. The reason I didn't get into Polymarket is because it was confusing to me because there were bets that you could still bet that like Trump will win the election and it was December. So I'm like, that doesn't make any. Can I just literally put money in this and guarantee to win because it's already happened?
You're like, I feel good about this one. If you like betting, I would stay away from it because holy crap. I hopped on it. I'm like, you can bet on anything.
Yeah, it's wild.
You could bet on anything. And apparently the guy who created it is now like after the accuracy of the election, Peter Thiel snagged him. And I don't know what they're doing, but like Peter Thiel basically connected with him and was like, hey, yeah. And now, so, because it was just so well done that intelligence agencies were like, all right, this kid basically figured out the world, you know?
So I put $1,000 bet at the beginning of the season that I forgot about on the Chiefs to win the last game. I didn't put it on the Super Bowl just because, well, that's the other reason that like I'm surprised about the refs because I would think that there's never been a three-peat before in the NFL. And so I would think that they would kind of want to like make it hard to get a three-peat, like keep that lore going. Like, oh, it's impossible to get a three-peat. But feels like they're like, nah, we got to finally get a three-peat.
They might now because I feel like the revenue of the NFL is going down because the Chiefs are winning so much. Because like where before, like if the Chiefs won with all the attention they got from Taylor Swift and all that stuff, but now that it's happening all over again, more people are mad. So like the viewership of the last game was down from previous years.
But it's the Super Bowl, dude.
I know, but I'm saying I'm betting you it won't be as big. Like I'm guessing the viewership won't be as big because it's the same story.
Well, there's one thing that we can guarantee. If the Chiefs win this year, then the refs are going to be opposed to them winning ever again. So they better seize the moment, seize the opportunity. They got one shot to give it everything they got. All right, so I got the national anthem being over 2 minutes. I almost always win that one.
Who's singing it?
Some guy named John Batiste. Seems like a dude that's going to sing really well.
You might want to listen to his music. If he's not like got big ballads, then you might be in trouble.
I think he does. I feel like it's a gut feeling, you know. But I also looked at like, I didn't bet last year on that one, and it was Reba, the country singer, and she did like 1:30. So I would have gotten railed.
Yeah, she doesn't got bars, bro. She doesn't got the range. If you got the range, it's gonna be long because you're just gonna be showing off the whole time.
Dude, that's why I think this one's gonna do it. And then
you haven't even listened to his music. How do you know?
All right, look him up. Somebody pull him up. I feel like I'm going off the name. I feel like he's a dude that's gonna like be able to belt out some tunes. Somebody pull him up. I want to see what he looks like. See if that gut feeling is right.
Yeah, you may be right. Let me listen to a song real quick.
Share the screen so the viewers can see.
There we go. All right. Here we go.
Dude, this dude's totally.
Can y'all hear that?
Yeah.
Kind of.
Sounds terrible, but yeah.
I don't know. I don't know, Justin.
He's pretty quick.
Pull him up on YouTube.
I don't know, man.
All right, we'll see.
You might be in trouble.
I'm not calling that one as my lock, but if anybody wants to take it, they can. Just can't blame me if you lose. So then I had to put one that was, I felt like a lock. So any player will rush for 100 or more yards. And Saquon Barkley, he's easily going to do that. So I got 300 on that one. And then I got 200 on an interesting one here. The final game score will be higher than the longest made field goal. So,
like total score?
The total score, like the combined between the two, will be higher than the yardage of the longest made field goal.
And what is that?
I think you're wrong.
It'll happen during the game.
Wait, it's in New Orleans, right?
Like, so if
it's
they kick,
okay, it might be.
Okay.
If they kick like a 40-yard field goal and that's the longest one in the game, or 50-yard, if the combined score is higher than that, then I win.
Okay, cool.
We'll see. We'll know by next week. I'll probably.
That's why they're betting. Tyler, just bet against him.
No, I don't want to do that. I don't gamble.
You just gamble on meme coins
for good reason. Yeah, and we see how that's gone.
Yeah, we got rugged really hard. We don't want to talk about it. Okay, cool. So let's get into it. So we're going over the mistakes. I would say they're common, but more so these are like the detrimental mistakes that an insurance agent can make, either when starting or maybe you've been making them for years. But these are pretty detrimental because they're either going to keep it so that you don't succeed and grow in your business, or it's going to make your time to success way longer than if you don't make these mistakes. So I would say the first one is treating your business like a job, or treating being an insurance agent like a job. I say this all the time. If you're an insurance agent, whether you accept it or not, you're a business owner. As long as you're not an LOA, that's the only time this is different. If you're an LOA and you literally just sit there, or you're in a call center and you just sit there and you get calls and then you sell, then you are an employee. But any other person, whether you accept it or not, it's a business. You do have to think through cash flow. You do have to keep track of your books. You do have to do marketing. Most of them are buying leads, but you still have to do marketing. You have to think about sales. You have to think about product. You literally have to think about every single thing a business owner does.
I'm trying to think of where, like, why do you feel like agents don't do that? Or I almost feel like maybe it comes from the whole like boss mama concept, but I feel like so many agents come into the business and they think that they are thinking like a business owner. Like they would, if you were to say like, are you a business owner? They'd say, yeah, for sure.
I think most of them probably think that just being a salesperson is enough. Like, oh, I can do sales. That's all I really need to do in this business because that's what makes money. But it's just so much more than that.
So I think it breaks down into two different categories. I think there are people that think it's a job, but then we should talk about the people that think that they're thinking like a business owner, but they're not. So I think that a lot of people do think of it as a job. I think the reason is because they found it on Indeed.
Yeah, that's true.
That's valid, yeah.
They're getting recruited to an MLM or whatever through Indeed, and they're like, oh, I'm looking for a job. And then they get, on a call with one of these agency owners that's recruiting, and then they get sold the dream, and then they're like, okay, I just got to follow this. That's the job.
Honestly, I think that makes sense to be the next big mistake is
now you're a family first life agent.
Yeah, getting recruited into a bad model where, I mean, if you get recruited into a bad model or just, that kind of a model, then it's all going to be thrown off. So what you think of as necessary in a business, I mean, it's insane. As somebody who's been in that world, there's no talk. It's actually kind of crazy. There's no discussion at all around books, period. Like the only tracking typically in that model from like an MLM style agent is how many leads did I buy? So like there's a lot of problems there, but like how many leads did I buy? How many appointments did I set? How many showed? And that's it. And obviously for most agents, they're just tracking AP. But like they're not actually tracking anything else. They don't know their P&L. They don't know any of that stuff.
Yeah. When you say books, like what do you mean? Like their book of business or like keeping track of things?
Keeping track of things.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think back to the number one, before we jump into the next one, I think that like there's so many people that have been recruited in that way, so they think it's a job. And oftentimes the people that listen to, whether it's in Indeed or a Facebook post or whatever, they're in a job already where they're not making enough. Like they're a waiter at a restaurant, or they're a teller at a bank, or they're doing something where they're fine, but like they know they want to do more. Or sometimes we even get a lot of people that are in relatively good jobs, like making 150, 200K, and they're moving over. But I do feel like the ones that are at like 150, 200K kind of realize what they're getting into. It's more so the ones that are in those other jobs where they know they need to make more money. So they're going online, they're responding to these types of posts, and then they get into it and they just don't think of themselves as a business owner. And I just think that That's such a big mistake, because if you treat this like a job, you're not going to get crazy results, but a lot of the times you're not going to get results, and then if you do, you're going to hit a plateau relatively early, or you're going to grow very, very slowly, because you just aren't thinking through because a lot of times employees don't think through the mindset of like, how can I actually scale this, or how can I do better, or how can I leverage. Most employees are never thinking, can I hire an admin, or can I hire somebody else to help me? So they just never look through the lens of leverage, which is so key
or
for
investment. It's like, and it also depends on what you want to do, because, even if you want to treat insurance like a job, like let's say you want the same outcome, a lot of times, unfortunately, those agents would be better off just going and getting a job, because at least with a job, you don't have to be worried about P&L or any of that. You're just doing your job. So it's like, if you step into this space and you're going to be a 1099, you're going to be the one who's in charge at the end of the day, you have to treat it like a business. Otherwise, yeah, because you said you'll grow slowly. Most agents, if they don't actually think about it like they're owning a business, like they're keeping track of their books, like they're doing all those things, they will never grow. They'll literally just stay in the same exact spot for 20 years. And then before you know it, they'll be 20 years deep in the same exact spot, which usually is freaking horrible. Like, it's a really rough spot to be, as just an independent agent.
Well, I think honestly, we could all talk about our own experiences, because we all now have agencies that are, by anybody from the outside looking in, successful. We probably have higher standards for ourselves, but we also all started at a different place where we had an insurance business or whatever, but we probably did treat it as a job. So for me, Northwestern Mutual, that was during college. That was my very first thing. I was definitely treating it as a job. And I got paid a $100 a month base. So that was really, really helpful. And then, they had like all these things that I should be doing. And their model is to, make a big list of friends and family and then turn that into referrals. So it never felt like, they never told me to go buy leads. So I think if they would have told me to go buy leads or invest, it would have made me question, is this a job or is this a business? But they didn't. So it still kind of felt like a job. But I think captive companies do a really, really good job of making you feel like you're an employee to some degree. But the ones that break out from that, even if they stay captive, they're the ones that are the top in the company. If you look across, just in my area, the ones that are number one still in that same organization, they do radio advertisements. They're all over the community. They've branched out. Oftentimes they even have their own name on the practice. They don't even have the carrier's name involved. So they're absolutely treating it like a business. They've got admins that they've hired. They've got junior agents that they've hired. They're really treating it like a business compared to the ones that don't. And then once I saw the light, been working with insurance agents for 7 years, and then started my agency in 2023 with my brother. We did it completely independent, treated it as a business, used ads, did everything, thought of it like any other actual business. We have to think about, okay, marketing, how are we going to get our products in front of people? What's our sales plan? What's our sales process? Like everything business wise, and that thing skyrocketed. We got up to $250,000 a year within 8 months. And I think I was at my $100 base, and then I was making like maybe $1,000 a month or $2,000 a month at Northwestern Mutual. So very
it's actually
drastic.
worse than a job.
Yeah. Oftentimes, if you treat a business like a job, it's worse than a real job for sure.
Oh yeah, no doubt. It's literally just go get a job, because at that point your quality of life will probably be better. But for the people who actually want to scale, and I think that's what it comes down to, is most people get into the business. I think most agents would probably say, "Oh, I got into the business to help somebody." But with that, they got in the business to help someone and make money, right? And usually
more
for most
money
of
than
them,
they were making.
Yeah, a lot of money. They want to make a lot of money. And so with that, you have to treat it like a business. But I feel like you touched on so many other mistakes. Like you just said, you did paid advertising. You had a sales process, right? So it's like we could get in, each one of those is its own thing that most agents don't do.
Yeah. What were your two experiences? Because Josh, I know that you kind of went hard on the MLM side, and then Tyler, you were doing something before this current agency, right?
Oh, yeah, I had a nice corporate job. Nice, cozy corporate remote job where I was just sitting at my desk and doing absolutely nothing meaningful.
I know you had that, but even when you started insurance, like when you first started it, did it feel like a job or did you?
Oh, 100%. I mean, I guess the biggest difference was it was just I had to motivate myself rather than somebody telling me what to do, which I think is important in business anyway. But yeah, man, I was just getting a list and cold calling people and trying to sell them indemnity plans, which is probably the most horrible experience any human can have on the planet.
Were you, when you got into the business that way, were you recruited or did you just decide, hey, I'm going to do this as a
No,
side hustle?
I was recruited. So yeah, I had a lady that I knew, big promises of like, I'm making all this money. You can easily do the same thing, yada, yada, yada. And so I started doing what she was doing and just like cold calling. I mean, she wasn't even cold calling people, but because she was just working off referrals. But I started cold calling people and trying to sell. I was like, well, this is awful. I have no processes. I'm sitting here, I'm selling some, but it's not nearly enough to replace this corporate slavery that I'm currently in. So
where or how did that switch flip for you?
I think once it was paid ads, to be honest. I mean, once I figured out, okay, and it was paid ads and it was the numbers, like realizing, okay, and it was just as simple as like I wasn't tracking like P&L, like whether it was even if I was just cold calling like free lists. I mean, it's still like my time investment is worth something. So I was like, I wasn't tracking really any numbers. I was just trying to get as many commissions as possible, which is never going to be a good outcome, rather than trying to create a machine. And then once I created the machine, which has grown into what my agency is today, it's pretty much the same machine, just at scale.
Even that concept, though, is kind of interesting because you say create a machine. Most agents would not even, I feel like most agents would not even know what that means. A lot of agents would think create a machine. Yeah, that means I'm recruiting a ton of people. And then those people below me are going to sell policies. And then eventually I can get out of the field. And then when I'm out of the field, I'll just be able to train and kind of help them. And that's my machine. But usually that machine never actually pans out.
Yeah.
No,
So
Tyler's machine does more revenue than most recruiting style agencies that have 300 agents. Tyler's machine does that with what,
4?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, so the what I would tell people is what I mean by creating a machine is like it's just something you can repeat over and over and over and over again, and it generates profit. I mean, that's like the general
And
thing.
repeat it one time successfully, because everything I'm thinking of comes down to the typical like downline MLM model, because most agents who recruit can never get one single agent underneath them that's like a destroyer. Like it's very rare for them to do that.
I mean, even building a machine can work for that model too, though, if that's what you want to do. But you have to have a repeatable process, and that involves training the agent to actually be able to sell. But first, you have to be able to do it. Like, because
I think
that's another problem. They just go straight into recruiting and they haven't sold jack. So if you haven't sold anything, how are your downline agents?
They're like, I've sold 4 or 5 policies at this point. Hey, let me get everybody I know and say, hey guys, look at what could happen. And then they have a bunch of people who don't know how to do anything. So it's like, if you haven't done it, then
I think the best way I can like build this analogy is when we say creating a machine, if you just think of like a machine that like Henry Ford built to build cars, the exact same parts are going through the exact same conveyor belt, doing the exact same thing over and over again. So if you put in a different part into that machine, it's going to break. So the same thing is the case with any of the agents that are listening. Think about your process. Where are you getting leads from? Okay, if you're getting referrals, that's different every single time because you don't control who gets referred to you. So you could get referred somebody that is 60 years old and needs help with health insurance, maybe life, maybe Medicare. Then you could get referred a 22-year-old that just got married. Vastly different processes. And that's the first place. Okay, let's just say that you're buying leads. Okay, you're buying leads from this source. Is that even consistent? Are they the exact same person, the exact same demeanor? Do they go through the exact same funnels, videos, everything every single time? Probably not. But if they do, okay, that's one source. But then the second that dries up because you don't control it, or because you have shiny object syndrome, you're buying leads from 3 different sources. Okay, that's 3 different parts going into a machine, breaking the machine. Then you have the recruiting side of things. Okay, are you recruiting the exact same person every single time? If, say, you found somebody that's great, that's a recruit of yours, and they were a college athlete, okay, then the next time you go and the person you recruit is a bank teller, and the next person you recruit worked at McDonald's. Those are different. So they're just kind of going and doing things randomly rather than thinking through what is the system, what is the sequence, what has worked before, can I go and do that exact same thing over and over again? That's really what we mean by creating machine. But Tyler, I'm curious, like so the numbers are the thing that like flip the switch for you. Where did you go from there? Did you just get on YouTube to learn how to run ads, and why was ads like the light bulb for you?
I think it was because of the kind of like you're saying, the control. So like anytime you don't have operational control over a part of your machine, that part of the machine has a chance to break the whole thing. So like a lead vendor is a great example. Like if you're not controlling the quality of those leads that you're buying, and let's say you buy the lead and then you have an amazing process from B to Z. But if A is screwed up, then it can screw up the rest of the process. So like paid ads were spectacular for me because I could control the quality and the type of prospect that was coming in. And that way, okay, so if I know that, then I can optimize the rest of my machine for maximum margin essentially, and how I can make a lot of money, but also help as many people as possible.
Even on the lead side, it's like if you are buying leads, because I'm sure there are agents who are watching, they're like, no, my leads have always been great, or my leads, like when I buy leads, they're always consistent, they're always great. But the reality is a lead vendor is constantly testing, they're constantly changing up their process to get a cheaper lead because it's the business model. And so agents who are buying those leads are always, it's that variable that, like you said, is outside of their control. So that lead source is, and most agents can never buy a lead for long. They buy a lead usually a few months at a time, and it's like, oh, this is a great lead. And then if they have a downline, their downline jumps on it, and then that pressure causes the lead vendor a need to scale. And when they scale, new problems are introduced in their process, which gets passed down to the agent, who's basically going, these were really good, what's happening? And so until that agent actually takes control of generating their own leads, paid advertising, that's always going to be it's going to be a variable that's outside of their control, which is going to cause problems.
Well, one thing that I've observed too, if you're thinking about like making a system around the recruiting model and then maybe just buying leads, because that's possible. You can do that. Otherwise, the other option is making a system around your marketing and then you control everything else. The one problem that I see relying on the recruiting model and buying leads, which again, I'm not saying it's not possible, but you have to replicate yourself. So say you're somebody that had success with that model. You came in, you got recruited, you were one of the people that actually made it work. You bought leads, you made sales. Now we got to consider chargebacks where it comes to like, are you actually keeping the money that your revenue is saying? But you then go to recruit. The biggest problem I see with that, and the reason that I believe that the industry is a 92% fail rate, is because the people that can make that work typically have very high charisma and very high grit. So then you have to go and recruit people that also have very high charisma and very high grit, and then they can follow your system. But the problem I see with that, if you're just an average person and you want to grow a successful business, which average people create successful businesses all the time. Very subpar average people create successful businesses all the time, but it's because they make the process easy. So if you're going to go the recruiting model, you have to recruit people with high charisma and high grit. And there's a lot less of those people in existence on this planet than just average people. So whereas if you go the marketing route and you can control the marketing, you can pre-sell them through the marketing to where closing that person is very easy and the average person can do it. That system's a lot easier for a normal person to implement and just follow and just implement general business practices that don't rely on the type of success. It's the same reason why if you were to start just like a normal business, like a contracting business or an HVAC business or something like that, there's those things do require probably a little bit more investment income, but let's just put that aside. I would say that the success rate of a business like that is much higher than the success rate of an MLM. So if you were to look at somebody that were to start a traditional business compared to somebody that were to start an Amway or Verve or whatever those things are, the reason that those are much, much more successful is people can just implement standard business practices that have been going on for years and years and years. Whereas the people on the MLM side, some can have very high success, but again, high charisma, high grit. And very few people on this planet have that. So if you're looking to recruit a lot of people, make the system easier where the marketing is controlled, and then you can just recruit average people and have them have success and bring that fail rate way down from that 92% average.
Then you make more money too.
Because what's interesting, sorry, Tyler, say that again.
No, you're good. That was it.
What's really interesting, if you think about it from just actually owning a business, if you own a business and you're going out to hire an employee, it's a ton of work. Like, it's a lot of work. You're basically, if you're savvy, you're putting out you're targeting them. You're doing paid ads, right? Or you're using Indeed and you're, pushing an ad on Indeed, or you're doing something to get some candidates, and then you're sorting through them, you're figuring out which one's going to make the cut, you're interviewing them, you're doing all of that, right? To find the right person. You're investing a lot of time and a lot of money to find the right person. In contrast to an MLM model, it's like you're basically just casting this massive net for anyone. Maybe you have a phone call with them and you're kind of selling them on the process and walking them through the gist of things. And then you're just like, go, let's go. Just, and so it's going to be very, very difficult to find a good candidate that way. That's actually going to be ramped up. That's actually going to be able to gain traction. I mean, imagine if you just did that in a business like an HVAC business. Imagine if you owned an HVAC business and you're just like, hey, you got friends and family that want to make money? Well, if they sold for me, they could make a ton of money. Come on in. It'd be a freaking shit show, dude. You'd have people going around selling the wrong product, doing all this stuff, getting chargebacks, like just having terrible experiences all around. So if you do have an MLM model and you really, let's say you're committed to that model, and it can work for sure, but if you're committed to that model, then you have to systematize your recruiting process to where you're like the best of the best of the best. And like you said, Justin, it's going to be really challenging to find more people that can have success in that model than it will be for you to create a really, really incredible process and bring in an average person that can have success in that model.
Yeah, 100%. Well, I think that transitions us nicely into the next mistake, which is being in a bad model. Warren Buffett has this quote. I'm probably going to butcher it, but it's not about how fast you row the boat. It's how it's the actual boat that you're in. So it's not about how fast you paddle, but it's the boat you're in. So I think he said it a lot more elegantly than me. But basically, it's like, are you in a bad model? So I would boil down, if you're, again, let's take away actual employees out of the equation. So if you're in this and you realize you're a business owner, there's like 3 models I would say that you could fall in, which is captive, an MLM style, and then completely independent. Where MLMs are independent, but the difference I would say when we're talking about MLMs is they have a high, heavy focus on recruiting, and that's how you get yourself out of the business. Whereas when I say independent, you have a high, heavy focus on doing business and writing policies, and you really actually want to do it with less people than more people. And typically you're hiring those people on as employees, not recruiting them as 1099 downlines. So to me, and I'm curious like what you guys think, I'm going to guess it's probably similar thoughts as me, but I would say that like the MLM is probably the hardest for most people. You are given exact steps, but again, if you don't have that natural high charisma and high grit, then I think it's going to be tough. The captive, I think, becomes really tough as well too, because they treat you and brainwash you into thinking that you're an employee, and then you oftentimes don't have the control that really you deserve because you got your own license. You're a 1099. If you're a captive that's a 1099, which most of them are, you have a license. You should be able to advertise. You should be able to market yourself however you want, but oftentimes you don't get to do that. But I mean, captives can have the one thing I would say about captives where I think it could be a good place to start. I've almost never seen a captive have as high as a potential as a independent that has full control over everything.
No, I mean, it's unlimited upside when you're independent, where typically in a captive role, you're not going to have, you do kind of have unlimited upside, but it's very, very hard.
Yeah. It can be a good route to start. Like, it could be a good route to go if you have the opportunity to go. The challenge sometimes is captives are treated like independents, to where it's like an independent has full control. And if, let's say you're captive and they're like, hey, have at it. Good luck. Essentially, that's a terrible spot to be because you got lower comp. You basically have the chains of captive with no upside. But there is an opportunity for people who are looking to learn a sales process. They're looking to understand the business, how to, basically how to operate as an agent. They have that umbrella of being captive. Maybe if they ideally have a ton of benefits because you got a lower comp, like, you basically are going to make less. And so if you're going to make less, the trade-offs have to be there. Maybe that captive has an incredible marketing system and they're able to train you on a really dialed in sales process and all of that. And maybe you never want to leave. But if you're one of those people who you want to get in, you're kind of looking at the industry strategically, it's not a bad place to start with the intention of going, cool, once I understand this, I'll make the switch. I'll pivot. I'll be independent because I'll take those skills, into my next, basically into the next venture of being independent.
Yeah. So why don't we jump into all three of those and cover like the biggest mistakes that could be? I think that there are mistakes in each of them. So, I mean, I can start with independent. I think independent is the best long-term route. I think that really, like, once you realize you have a business, once you understand your products, once you have a little bit of sales skills, at that point, it's probably makes sense to jump and go on your own and get higher comp, and you don't need as much support, all that stuff. But I would say that, like, from the get-go, you can start as an independent for sure. If you're a self-starter, if you know how to use ChatGPT, if you know how to talk to people,
yeah,
and
that's what I would say is, like, to be independent or just to be an independent business owner at all, you have to be comfortable with the uncomfortable, because, like, monetarily, like you eat what you kill. So, I mean, that's probably the hardest part. And I just don't think a lot of people are cut out for that, which is not a bad thing. I don't think it's a bad thing. Some people just aren't cut out to be, I mean, self-starter, eat what you kill type of game. I mean, it's
that would
hard
be
out
like
there.
the truest path of, like, hey, I'm starting a business. Like,
Yeah.
because if you go start an HVAC business, or if you go start a home services business, or you go start any business, like, you don't typically have a mentor unless you go seek that out yourself, which you absolutely can for insurance. They don't have to be your upline. They don't have to be anything to you. You can find a mentor, or you can go buy programs and courses. You can talk to ChatGPT. You can go on YouTube. You can figure it out. So if you're truly like a business owner and you want this to be a business, that's probably the best route to start. But if you're like, I do now realize I'm a business owner because Justin told me, but I'm still a little bit nervous, then maybe one of the other two models is a better place to start. But I still think long term, you just have a way higher capacity and way higher scalability by getting fully independent at some point.
And if you build up that grit and that kind of attitude that it takes to go that route, then that will be something that will benefit you, not just in business, but I mean, pretty much everywhere. So, I mean, if you can do it and you can stick it out, it'll be the best decision you've ever made.
Yeah. So then the other two routes, I'd say with captive, the mistakes to avoid are ones that just make you basically feel like an employee. You have lower comp, but you really don't have tons of support. If you're going to want to look for somewhere that has a lot of resources, like, really, I'd say higher tech built out courses that they made that you can watch, if not in-person classes. They have somebody that will go on appointments with you so you can shadow and learn on the job. They're doing product knowledge and product training. But then the place that you still fall short with almost every single captive agency is they suck at sales, to be honest. And I'm probably going to get a lot of hate for this, but they're typically used to working referrals or working friends and family. And so they have a sales process for doing that. They have a sales process for calling leads and handling objections, but their handling objections is all around, like, not calling leads, but calling referrals and handling the objection to the appointment, right? Because you're calling people that don't actually have an interest and you have to convince them to have an interest. So you may become a very good appointment setter, and that may be the extent of your sales skills. But that's where I've yet to find a captive agent that is a killer salesperson that could take a cold lead and one call close it. They just aren't used to that. So if you do go that route, realize that that's probably going to be, if you have all those other things that are good, that's probably going to be a blind spot for the long term. And look to outside sources. Look on YouTube for sales trainers, potentially courses, things like that, in order to sharpen that skill.
Yeah, it's like you said, a lot of people, I mean, sucking at sales is no big deal, but staying in that position is what is bad. And typically, the highest performing salespeople know they have gaps. A lot of times, the worst salespeople are the ones who are like, I'm good. I'm the best. I'm a killer. I don't have anything else left to learn." Those are usually the people who are like, they suck at sales. But
Yeah.
I mean, from my experience being more on that MLM side of mortgage protection and all of that, it's like the reason those agents suck at sales is because they're typically fed one-liners. And it's like, oh, if you hear this, you could try and say something along these lines. And that's all they get. They never get like a really solid framework. Most of the time, agents are thrown into it. They're like, hey, you just need to dial these leads. And then what do I say? Something kind of like this. And then you're just trying to set the appointment. And then when you run the appointment, you basically just need to present these three options or whatever the case is. And then just say, here's X, Y, and Z. Which one do you want? It's like, that's it. And so for the most part, these agents are left just to figure it out on their own. If they were to have a
Might as well
framework,
be independent if you're going to do that.
Yeah, for sure. But that's the reality of most agents' experience is captive or independent. The sales side just lacks big time because they don't have a framework for the entire process.
Well, I think it falls back to MLM is typically independent, but you have a much higher focus on recruiting than you do on actually writing business. And so a lot of the times your training is very quick. It's one product, you're going to buy this lead, either final expense or mortgage protection. Here's a script we have. I will say that the sales skills training, not the product knowledge on captive side is good. Product knowledge on MLM side is bad. Sales skills on the captive side is typically bad, but the sales skills on the the MLM side is actually kind of decent for those products only. That's the caveat. Is like they have a script, they have a process. They can teach you to sell from day one if you follow the script, final expense or mortgage protection. But the second that you get somebody that is interested in something else, they fall apart. And I know this because we've had several insurance agents that come from that model apply to be salespeople for us. And when we ask them to do role plays, they pretty much fall apart because they don't have a script, or they try to apply their mortgage protection script to what we do. And
or they don't have a
trash,
framework. Like they don't have a framework that they could take from when you really, I think it's different because we've all taken really high level sales training, and really high level sales training freaking humbles you because you might think you know how to sell, but it's just like what you said, Justin. You're like, I can sell. I've sold in this process 1,000 times. But really what you've dialed in is a script. And then does that framework translate? Because a really good framework should translate across industries. Like you should be able to take a really good framework and sell freaking roofs if you wanted to. Like you should have a process to where you can go, okay, obviously the verbiage, the product, all those things change here, but this is kind of the ladder that I'm moving up in the sales process. And that's where it falls apart for most agents is, like you said, I've got a script for mortgage protection and I can sling that all day. But if I get somebody that comes to me for anything different, everything falls apart.
Yeah, and we see that when agents try to take over their marketing, and then they start getting people coming through that have a problem, and then you have to navigate the conversation to figure out what the best product is to solve that problem. They fall apart. But I mean, yeah, Josh, like you were hinting at it, but you could probably speak to this really, really well because you started in that MLM model. You made hundreds of sales, and then you moved to sales role in the car industry, made a bunch of sales, and then you came and sold for us. Not to mention that your brother was one of our most successful clients, very good salesperson in the insurance industry. So like you'd seen it, but then when you came in and sold for us, I mean, I think you did decent, but you the whole time felt like you were not doing well, especially compared to our other closers. And it's just a whole different world, which goes to show once you get real sales training, then if you were to go back to insurance right now with what you've been trained on,
it'd be great.
Yeah.
Well, it's just because process. That's really what it comes down to. Because in all those other roles, like being, MLM or MLM style, mortgage protection, maybe occasionally try and sling an annuity or like an IUL or, whatever. I mean, it's like that has a really defined script. And then if you have a good upline, you usually get a really defined script. But almost never do you have a really incredible process, like an entire structure, an entire framework. Because once you move over, so like you move over into high ticket or pretty much anything else, most agents I think would be shocked. It's like a really intense sales training process like high ticket will totally humble you because most agents don't record their calls. They have no accountability. They literally have, I'll call my upline or I'll call my boss or whatever if you're captive. What happened with that sale? They said, this said, they said, and then I said this. Okay. Well, you could try this next time. You'll get them. Cool. But like if you move into a really intense sales training process, your call is recorded. Let's listen to your call right here.
We do call reviews.
There's no hiding. It's like every stone is unturned. Hey, you totally flopped on this part. You flopped on this part. And then it'll totally humble you. It'll basically make you realize like I was really good at selling this. Like I was the best. And now I'm freaking terrible.
I can guarantee you like the one thing that'll probably pinpoint this issue is probably one of the number one search terms, like probably on YouTube or just the internet in the insurance industry is like, what's the best script for selling final expense insurance or something like that? Like people are always looking for the golden script. But what you should be looking for is the golden process that can, like y'all are saying, transition to any product, any industry. I mean,
well, I'm not saying he's the best, but Jeremy Miner has a ton of insurance agents that have gone through his stuff. And so like if you're searching for best script for final expense, you'd be better off by just searching who is an amazing sales trainer in general and going through their stuff.
Well, and how it all comes back to, like, it all loops back to thinking like a business owner, because how many agents would really go and spend 10 grand on sales consulting? It's like, how many agents would think like a business owner and realize, like, I've got a huge gap here. Okay, how do I bridge that? I'm going to go look for the best sales trainer I can find. Oh, it's $10,000. It's worth it, because I know if I can really get good at this, then
that's
it
10
will
sales.
take me to
Everybody,
the
you
next
just got
level.
to think through it the right way. That's 10 sales. That's nothing.
Like, be like me and just throw money at everything and hope it works.
Get a 0% interest. The best thing about investing in sales is that you can get a return on it within like a week if you have calls. If you're investing in marketing, it can take a month or two because you got to set it up, you got to get it coming in and all that stuff. But investing in sales, you can apply that stuff immediately and get an immediate return. And I can tell you that it works, Jeremy Miner stuff specifically, because one of our best clients, Elijah, he had already gone through Jeremy's training before coming in. He was regularly doing like 30, 40K months. Then he applied the marketing and then he hit like 70,
turned
80K
into a
months.
destroyer.
Yeah.
But it was like, what separated, because it's interesting, right around that time when Elijah came in, we had another client who was from the mortgage protection space, and basically right side by side, they both launched their marketing systems side by side. They were both getting leads. They were both getting opportunities. Elijah turned it into gold because he had a dialed in process that he could translate. It's not like he was working scripts. He was working a process. And even when we were talking with him about it, it was clear he had a process, because he was saying, I just need to get this piece knocked out and this piece knocked out and this piece knocked out. Whereas the other agent was going, well, this is what I usually say. And so it was like basically checkers. It was,
checkers versus chess. Yeah.
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 Elijah's playing chess. He's going, if I can knock out this piece, then I'll move here, and then I can change the conversation to this. I mean, it's just a totally different level. And so otherwise you're stuck selling one product for life. And then what are you going to do? I mean, you have an opportunity for a different product or something. You're like, I've never sold that. So I don't know the script for that. So I have no idea, and then you're losing tons of business.
Yep. Well, and then even then you could get out of that, because if you think like a business owner, you can think, okay, every referral I get that's not my one product that I can sell, I'm going to go hand that off to somebody else and get 50-50 joint commission. Thinking like a business owner, you could be like Tyler and be like, I'm never going to sell shit. I'm only going to market it. And then I'm going to 50-50 split and just get money and never have to get on the phone with everybody. But that's what it comes back to, thinking like a business owner. How do I monetize everything that I'm getting when I don't have to learn every skill? I could.
But that's the thing too. It's like, if you think like a business owner, then that means you think critically and you're looking for solutions constantly. And here's the bottom line. Tyler hates sales. So he sold and was like, I hate this. How do I get out of this? Oh, I get really good at marketing and I drive all the business. It's like,
yeah, he didn't just go, oh, I'm going to go back to my corporate job. He's like, how am I going to solve this problem?
Build a
and
machine.
Then that allowed him to scale.
You just build a machine where you don't have to sell, which some products that's kind of impossible with, especially like higher premium products. But it's not impossible.
But not necessarily.
But some agents love to sell. Some agents love to sell. They're like, I want to sell for my whole life. Great. But some agents can sell and they hate to sell. Yeah. Cool. Get yourself out of it.
Yeah. With y'all's product,
but even the higher
selling, like it's not even selling. So it's like, I mean, almost when you bring them through a funnel like that, they're pre-sold, like you're saying. So
yeah, and you can always, again, thinking like a business owner, you can always go find somebody that's really good at selling and then partner with them, do joint work. People will give you 50% of the commission if you bring them people consistently.
Oh yeah,
you can find enough people. Annuities, like
big.
You could make a business just out of doing that, generating opportunity. People will split annuity commission with you 50-50. If you bring in $100,000 annuity, that's a $7,000 commission. If you bring in $1 million annuity, that's a $70,000 commission. Like, there's so many ways you can build a business in the insurance industry. It's insane. It's insane. But you got to learn high value skills like marketing. If you don't want to learn marketing, then you have to have a very high level skill of sales, but actually sales, not just following one script.
Ideally, you don't skip steps. Ideally, you work some sales, you get in the trenches a little bit so you know what's going on. If you do want to just become a marketer, if you're in the trenches selling, you know how to market. Like, or once you move into marketing, you know what's going to work. You know what they're going to experience. You can kind of direct that in your creative. So it can be very synergistic if you're stuck in a sales. If you're doing sales right now, which is probably most agents, if you're doing sales and you're like, I love it, great, get better and better and better at sales. Maybe find a marketer to partner with. If you're doing sales and you want to move out and you want to focus more on marketing, well, then great, get really good at marketing, and then, like you said, Justin, find somebody who can close those deals.
But you will have to up level if you really want a successful business. If you want to make it a 7-figure or 8-figure, you're going to have to up level from just marketing and sales. Those are revenue generating activities. But if you want to hit, you could probably hit 7 figures on your own with that. But if you want to hit multiple 7 figures or 8 figures, you got to up level into managing people. So you're either going to have to manage a marketing team or you're going to have to manage a sales team. So you're going to have to learn how to run a high performance sales team as well too. And then you're going to have to learn to track your numbers, because if you don't
Depends,
track your numbers,
though. Do you want the Chad life? If you want the Chad life, for a lot of agents, they could just basically stop at marketing and sales, dial that in, and be good.
Yeah.
If you're trying to build a monster of a business, yeah, for sure, you're going to have to really get into managing people.
If you're amazing at selling annuities and you're like the best salesperson of annuities ever, and you need some appointments, just send me a DM.
Get up, Tyler.
Because I don't want to sell them, but I can help, and I'll take 75% of your commission. No, I'm just kidding.
They're layups. They're already sold. You just got to come in and just collect their bank account.
I just don't want to do that. I don't want to collect banking information. So
you just don't want to get on the phone, dude. He's a Gen Z. He doesn't want to get on the phone.
I hate phone calls. I ignore everyone that comes in, even from my own family. So,
but I think to wrap that up, like, biggest mistake of the MLM side is if you're going to go that route, it can work. If you're high charisma, high grit, then you could probably just follow it and do great. If you're not, then I would make sure that you have a really, really good mentor. Just because you get recruited into an IMO or FMO or any organization doesn't mean that that person that recruited you in is going to be the best person for you to learn from. And they're going to get mad if you switch to somebody else, but who cares? It's your life. So make sure that whoever you're learning from is actually good and fits the style of business that you want to build, or at least you can see them getting you a start before you can go and move into a more independent and have more control. And then I would just realize, like, if you do go down that MLM route, either lean into the fact that they're going to want you to recruit, because that's their way of turning it into passive, which I fundamentally think that that's a subpar model, which we can talk about at some other time. But if you want to do that, you can absolutely make that work.
In contrast to what? Because a lot of agents won't even know there is another model. So in contrast to what?
In contrast to having agents as employees, having a lot less of them, having 2 to 3 to 4 and doing the same amount of revenue, but most of the profits are going to you as the business owner. But you need to be able to control your marketing in order to do that. But it's much more profitable. I mean, we can just look at...
We can help with that.
Yeah.
We can help with you.
But I mean, we can just...
controlling your marketing.
We can literally look at agents that we know that have like 150 agents that are doing... I mean, will he care? Can we kind of analyze... Can we break down your brother's business? All right, we can talk about it.
Let's just roast Josh's brother on here.
I roast Blaze.
Well, it's the typical agent. I mean, because it's like we see agents all the time who
it's not Blaze's fault; it's the model's fault.
For sure.
Yeah,
we see agents all the time who are in that situation. Maybe they have like 20 or 30 agents. Maybe they have 3, 4, 5 killers that are really good, like Elijah. Maybe they have guys like that. But then the reality is you're still on the phone all the time. You're basically trying to rally all the other ones who are terrible. It's like, why wouldn't you just have 1, 2, or 3 really good dialed in agents that you can just feed opportunity to and not have to try and corral 20 or 30 that aren't doing anything?
The biggest problems I see to that model are, one, that you're hurting cats. You're not even hurting sheep. You're hurting cats. And that's just a pain in the ass. So you spend you try and leverage yourself out of the business, but you spend all your time on the phone trying to help them because they're idiots, to be honest, most of them. And then when you scale, you have a scale problem because you find 2, 3, 4, 5, 10, however many killers. And if you're not an amazing leader, and out of all business skills that you can learn, leadership is the hardest, I would say. Like, actually becoming a really, really good leader is a very hard skill to learn because there's books on it. It's very theoretical. Being a leader and being able to like actually motivate people is really, really hard. If you're not that, they're going to leave. They're going to go start their own. They're going to try to get higher comp. It's just hard. By doing a good job, you're creating people that are going to leave you, and then you start back at square one.
Recruiting fundamentally is a lot harder than just selling more policies, to be honest.
And then hiring an agent that doesn't have to be a business owner. They don't have to come in and think about marketing. They don't have to come in and do their books. They don't have to come in and think about anything other than just being freaking good at selling one thing over and over again because you created them a system.
Well, and there's plenty of agents who want that. There's plenty of agents who would love to just say, I just want to run appointments all day and then be able to be done and go have dinner with my family. And it's like they would love that balance.
Yeah.
So you can definitely find them. There's
Those
plenty of
people
them
are
out there.
Way easier to find than the people with the grit that it's going to take to succeed as a 1099. And not only you're having to recruit way more of those people that are harder to find to make the same amount of revenue that you could recruit 4 LOA employees, and you'll probably make more money.
Well, imagine as an owner, like from the thinking as a business owner with the MLM recruiting style model in mind, it's like, imagine if you had 20 employees. And obviously, you're not paying these people, but you are paying them in your time because you're answering the phone, you're texting them all the time. Imagine if you had even 1 or 2 employees in your business that you constantly were like, "Hey, man, how's it going? What are you working on? I'll get it. I'm gonna work at some point. I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna do it." But they literally never do anything. There's so many people, the majority for sure, of agents in that model, in a downline model, that are like, "Oh, I will be doing this. Oh, I'm gonna start doing that," or I tried to dial these leads or whatever the case might be, but they're just basically time suckers, energy suckers. And then it's a tough model to operate in for sure.
Well, I want to share this too. So here's the power of that other model of controlling your marketing and hiring employee agents. A lot of people out there, they've heard the LOA term. If you're a life agent, you might be like, oh, well, an LOA is in a call center. Call centers, I've heard of them. If you are familiar with them, their margins usually actually suck. Some of them do really, really good. But the problem is with most call centers, they don't control their marketing. They buy leads. The true model that we're talking about, where you control your marketing, you run your own ads, you have a process, you hire agents, it's unbeatable. There's not that many out there of these businesses. They're starting to get more, but there's not that many out there because almost everybody that comes into the industry is recruited through the MLM model. This is one of the most amazing models, no matter what you're selling. So I have an example for almost every single product. If you want to look at infinite banking, there's a guy named Patrick Donahoe. He wrote a book. His book generates him a buttload of leads, and then he has agents that can sell infinite banking. Amazing business. Definitely does. I bet he does 8 figures, to be honest. And all of his agents probably make really good money, and they're probably at 30% comp, but they still probably make more than almost every single person here listening that has 90% comp, 120% comp, 140% comp. That's the advanced markets products. Guarantee there's one out there for annuities as well too. Actually, there's a guy in Omaha. He does radio. He does 50 million in annuities. He has agents. They're LOAs. Medicare. This has really been a bigger thing in the Medicare space that I think is translating to these other businesses. But Medicare and health insurance, I mean, Tyler's health insurance, they do $200,000 a month. Medicare, there's plenty of people that we know that do multiple 7 figures, 8 figures on this model. Okay, let's go into final expense, the biggest MLM product in the industry. Can this be done with final expense? Well, I have a buddy, and so most agents, like if you're a good agent working in one of these IMOs, you're doing like 40, 50K a month in production. This guy, he learned to control his marketing. He has a ton of automations built out. He has full control over everything. He tracks his numbers. He does amazing. Started doing this himself, started writing 50, 60K a month while having to do all of the other business things, tracking his numbers, marketing, everything. So he wasn't just a full-time salespeople. He started hiring LOA agents that were employees of his. And these were young 21, 22-year-old Mormons that had just been on mission. So they knew how to sell. They were going door to door selling what they were selling. And so they came and worked for him. And within like 2 to 3 weeks of following his system, each of them were doing $80,000 a month in production. He's now got a team of 8 LOA agents, and they do $600,000 a month selling final expense only.
And those LOA agents made killer money.
Yeah, they're making like $250K a year, and they're on 20% comp. Yeah. They're on 20% comp and bonuses, and they make $250K a year. So this model is so much better than the other model. I have so much conviction of it, but it requires you to learn other skills. You have to learn how to be a business owner. You have to learn how to market.
You got to work hard.
But
Surprise.
You got to work hard. Yeah. But I mean, dude, so $600,000 a month, what, like in an MLM model, how many agents is that to hit those numbers? Like 100, 200, 300, 500?
Yeah. A butt ton. tell you that.
Yeah, exactly. So would you rather have 6 agents that you have to manage and do, or 8 agents that you have to manage and do 600,000 a month? Or would you rather have to manage 300 agents to get close to doing that, and then all of those fall off the back because of chargebacks, because you aren't actually controlling all those 300 agents
and 300
processes.
agents who are going to be unhappy because they're not making any money like you promised them, or 6 agents that are going to be really happy because they're making 200 grand a year,
and they'll never leave you, and all they have to do is be Jedis at sales. Yeah,
which is much easier to do when you control the entire client journey, right? From the ad to the moment they sit with your agent to after that. It's like your LOA sits there with a completely dialed in process and basically just makes great money, has a really great quality of life, way better. That LOA makes way more money and has a way better quality of life than an MLM style agency owner who's speaking at your conference, who you think has this incredible life. That LOA has a way better life and makes way more money than they do.
Yeah, we have a lot of conviction behind this.
Amen.
But you can still make money with the MLM route if you want to.
Yeah, but if you're straight, then don't. Sorry, cut that.
No, don't cut that. We got to keep getting Tyler to come out of his shell. Okay, so we've kind of covered treat your business like a business. Make sure you're in a model that suits you. For now, like, realize that the model that you start in may not be the model, and most likely is best to not be the model that you expand and scale into. Other one is that most people don't have a sales process. Most people that come in are going to suck at sales. And realize that, embrace that, because the only way to get better at something is to realize you have gaps that you need to get better in. I'd say the last one to dive into is like, and you hit on this earlier, is like books and tracking numbers.
Gotta know your numbies.
The super boring stuff. The super boring stuff that nobody wants to mess with.
Just get you a Google sheet, whoop some numbers in there, make sure it says green. That's my advice.
Well, honestly, now with ChatGPT, you could say, hey, this is exactly what I do. What information do you need to help me make a spreadsheet that will track everything that I need to know in the business to make sure everything's working properly? And then you could hand that off to somebody on Fiverr and say, hey, build this for me. This is what I need for my business.
Do you know if Gemini can build Google Sheets yet? Just kind of, so I don't know if it's that good yet.
But I'd be surprised. I'd be surprised if it couldn't, but I don't know.
Anyways.
It's fully integrated with the Google Suite products, so I bet it could, or at least.
Well, we demoed that. We demoed we demoed Gemini screen sharing. You could literally screen share and say, hey, this is what I'm trying to do. Help me fill this out.
It may not be able to build it for you, but it can definitely watch your screen and tell you what to do.
Make it easier, and at least with formulas and stuff. Like if you're not an Excel wizard like me, then.
Well, yeah, that's what I was going to say when Tyler said just get a sheet and make sure it's green. Tyler has very high tenacity, so not only will he look at the numbers he needs to make the spreadsheet, but Tyler also has blocks on his calendar to fill that out every single day. I have blocks on my calendar and I ignore them every single day. So if you're like me, hire a VA to just fill it out for you. So you don't have to have the skill of filling out the numbers, but you absolutely have to have the skill of analyzing and reading the numbers.
Well, if you have the skill to analyze them, I would hope you would have the skill to and put them in there.
So here's the deal. It's like a lot of these agents are really good at sales, or like a sales script, like they can level up and get really good in sales. And they're probably not going to be the kind of people that want to go build out some massive spreadsheet, and like they're probably not that kind of person. So, but you can outsource that very quickly. I mean, having a VA who you meet with for 15 minutes a day, you're like, here's the gist. Can you just fill this out for me? It's totally obtainable. And
you can train them to find the numbers for you, so they don't even have to meet with you anymore.
Maybe operator could do it. Probably could.
Totally. That's probably one of the first things. Once you're
I'm gonna do that.
Getting a system dialed in, that's one of the first things that you could outsource very inexpensively.
Dude, I bet you operator, if I told it, because can't you do repetitive daily tasks with operator?
It can.
Oh,
it absolutely can do it.
Okay, go into, because literally what I do is I go into my ads manager and I say, okay, what did I spend yesterday? Then I go into where the leads, I say, how many leads did I get? And then
it can do all of that.
Sales are auto-populated.
It can write copy.
Dude, we're even more automated than you. We have Zapier telling us how much we spent yesterday.
Oh, well, congrats. I mean, what do you want, a cookie?
Tyler's still in the dark ages, apparently. He's
which is insane because he's way more into AI than I am. But let's go over like say you're a single agent starting out, you realize you're a business owner. What are the first things you need to be tracking? let's just say that they don't have a marketing system yet. So let's say on the marketing side, they're buying leads. What should they be tracking? And then on the sales side, and then maybe some finance numbers.
Okay. Number 1, how many leads you get, how much you spend. First 2. Number 3. Wait. 3.
And would you do this? Would you put numbers in daily?
Yeah, I like daily. And then you can look, I like looking at them weekly, like on a 7-day rolling basis. But yeah, I would just do a spreadsheet. You're going to put, first column is going to be the date. Okay. So you're just going to put dates far down as you want to go. And you're going to have a column. It's going to be, how many leads did I get? How much did I spend on these leads that day? And then what you're going to have is, if you're running an appointment-based business, which probably 99% of people are, you're going to have how many appointments did those leads get me? And then,
and if you're just calling and selling like a pure telesales agent, I would just, if you connect with them and you go into like a sales call, I would call that like an appointment.
Yeah, I would agree. So yeah, you can call that an appointment, but some kind of appointment category, or like, okay, I connect to this person, yada, yada. I have an opportunity to sell them whatever it is I am selling.
I would do, if you're doing appointment where you're calling, setting an appointment, then they show, I would do appointments booked and then appointments showed.
Yep. So you want to track your no-shows too. That way, because you can set up automations to decrease no-shows, just sidebar. But so you'll do appointments, and then you'll do sales, essentially, like how many sales did I get from these appointments that I got? And then you can put compensation in there too. How much money did I make? That way you can calculate what your return on those leads were. And that's kind of why it's important to do it on a rolling 7, because like, yeah, if you buy a lead, you may not sell it that same day, whatever it may be. But
and then I would automatically have it calculate your show rate. Yep. So the amount of people from booked appointments to show, you can do a little formula, ask AI to teach you this, for what your show percentage is.
It's called division.
And then I would do, it's just simple division. And then I would do another automatically calculated line that calculates your close rate. So out of how many appointments that were live, how many showed up, how many did you close? Dude, what are the average close rates insurance agents tell us that they're at? I'm at 90% close rate.
Oh, if I could get somebody on the phone, I close 90%.
Insurance agents are apparently the best salespeople in the world. Yeah, start tracking your numbers and then show me.
But then you'll say, okay, cool. At what point do you consider them on the phone? They're like, oh, when I'm getting their social security.
Yeah. Yeah. Track.
I don't consider an appointment unless, I basically have met their parents and I'm in their kitchen. And
I would bet $1,000 that if somebody listens to this, if they start tracking their numbers like we tell them today, and they start recording their calls and just themselves listen to their sales calls, even if you're in person, turn on the recorder. If you start watching your own game film, if you do those two things, I would bet $1,000 that you improve.
Oh, and bro, you could even transcribe it, give it to ChatGPT and be like, hey, like, what can I improve? If you can't afford a sales coach, just do that. ChatGPT's freaking $20 a month, bro.
You can even use the voice feature in ChatGPT and say, cool, you have this appointment, you have my process, you have what I'm trying to sell. I need to redo this. I need you to act like the client in this situation. And I want to role play with you so that I can get better. And it'll do it.
Here's what I'll do, because I want people to watch to this part of the video. So we're going to put this at the beginning of the video. If anybody comes on here and they implement what we just said, you start tracking those numbers, you start listening to your calls, and then you put it into ChatGPT. If you do that for a month and you show me that you haven't improved, I'll give you $1,000. I'm only going to give it to one person, but ideally you guys will all improve and you'll get a massive value out of this. So listen to exactly what we're talking about right here. But for those of you that listen to this and take action, you're going to get way more than $1,000 from just implementing these steps.
And if you really want help, you could, if you want to be humbled, but you want to be better, you could even send in a recording and just have us basically walk through it and say, this is where you could improve. This is something video for now.
Send it. We'll do a call review for you. We'll take out any personal information or anything like that. We'll do a call review. I mean, people pay us thousands and thousands of dollars for things like that. We'll do it for free right here on YouTube.
You might get reamed, but
yeah, you might.
That's the only way to get better. Oh man. I mean, when I started doing the sales training, Justin, with you and the team, it was like, oh, this is the most painful thing. There's no hiding. You're like, yeah, I botched that. I botched rapport. Oh, I botched setting the frame. It's the most humbling thing ever, but it's the way to take you to the next level.
Yeah. So I've spent over $100,000 on sales training and sales team management training. And I love sales because it's like a chess game to me, but I hate sales because I get burnt out really quickly. So it's a love-hate thing. But I was just on a sales call the other day and I closed it, and Chase gave me a compliment. I'm trying to find it, but he said something like, "You're low-key a stud at sales." And that was like the most meaningful compliment I've ever gotten in my entire life. Everything that I do is around marketing, but like people recognizing the sales skills that I've built from all that personal investment is huge.
If you can't sell, you're going to struggle with marketing too.
You're just happy somebody gave you a compliment because I degrade you all day.
Yeah, exactly. I need someone to balance it out.
Justin really grabbed onto that. He's like, "Oh,
well,
I needed
somebody likes me."
So those are the marketing ones. Are there any other sales KPIs that I think that those would kind of cover?
We got a spectacular start and more than most people are doing. So
yeah, because from there you're going to be able to calculate your ROI, and even if you're getting leads from referrals and things like that for free, then your ROI is going to be
count them towards 100%. It. We count anything that comes in. I don't care if it's a referral, organic, or paid. We count it all towards the seat cost per acquiring a client because I mean, client's a client.
Let's just start with that for now. We can do a much more in-depth dive on like numbers required when you want to scale, because there's probably some other ones about like calculating your expenses to know what your actual net profit is each month and things like that. But just start with those for now. But I really, really challenge anybody listening to this to go and do that and get back to us. Either send in a recording or do it, and you're going to improve. And if the off chance you don't improve, I'll send you $1,000.
But don't just not try and try to get Justin to send you $1,000.
You'll make way more money if you actually try than $1,000. That's the reason I'm doing it. And I pretty much guarantee that if somebody actually tries at this, they will improve.
All right. New videos every week.
You also have to like this video and be subscribed to the channel in order to qualify for that $1,000. And you know what? I'm only going to give $1,000 out, but I'd rather give it to somebody that succeeds than somebody that fails. So if somebody comes in and does all those things and improves and can show me, I'll give you $1,000. So I'd much rather you guys try and get that and show me first, so then I don't have to give it to somebody that failed. All right. Like, subscribe, win $1,000, new videos every week. We'll see you guys on the next one.
Don't be a brokey.